This naked woman is suspended in the outskirts. Her body is marked with the positions of various organs. A burlap sack is placed over her head. A bearded man opens a camera. He slowly approaches the naked woman and raises his weapon. This man is a cruel cannibal. He finds pleasure in torturing defenseless women. He particularly enjoys recording the dismemberment process with his camera. This is the Canadian horror film, Butcher's Book 2, Raghorn, that we will discuss in this episode. The film begins with a woman running through the woods. She looks terrified and covered in wounds. Soon, a figure starts chasing after her. The woman can't help but show a look of despair. In the next moment, a burly man named Matthew appears. Matthew crushes her face with his bare hands. He drags the body back to a cabin in the woods. There is a dirty man named Gordon. He instructs him to dispose of the woman's body. These two are cannibals hiding in the woods. Before this woman, many victims have died in a gruesome manner. At the same time, an old car is passing through the woods with 4 people inside. They stop outside a gas station. 2 young people in the backseat go to use the restroom. Jacob and Aaron stay at the gas station. At this moment, a police officer approaches. Jacob immediately reaches for his gun. He appears to be afraid of the police. At that moment, the 2 young people come out of the convenience store. They end up being stopped by the police officer at the entrance, engaging in a conversation. Jacob and Aaron nervously watch them. Fortunately, the police officer doesn't take any action. The young people quickly return to the backseat. The 4 of them continue their journey forward. Along the way, Jacob asks the young people what they talked about with the police officer. Ian, the boy, says there was nothing special, just asking where they came from and where they were headed. Jacob, for some reason, becomes very angry. Not only does he not pay attention to the road, he also keeps turning back and cursing at Ian. Unexpectedly, a deer suddenly appears on the road. Although Jacob brakes in time, he still collides with the deer. The sharp antlers pierce into Jacob's belly. The others grab the antlers and pull them out. Unexpectedly, the deer opens its eyes and lets out a roar. Jacob immediately shoots and kills the deer. Aaron plans to abandon his teammate and run away. He asks where their predetermined meeting point was. However, Jacob refuses to answer. He even spits in Aaron's face. Aaron gets angry and punches Jacob's head heavily. The only woman among the 4, Bess. She reaches into the car and rummages through Jacob's pockets. Bess finds a blood-soaked note. The piece of paper contains a set of phone numbers, yet none of the 4 individuals have a cell phone. Just then, an unlucky passerby drives by. Bess immediately waves for help. She claims that her boyfriend was killed by a deer on the side of the road. She adds that their vintage car is completely totaled. Therefore, she wants to hitch a ride to leave this place. The kind-hearted passerby believes Bess's lie. He kindly asks if they need to report the incident to the police. Bess says they don't need to call the police. After saying this, Bess signals to Aaron with her eyes. The 2 of them prepare to harm the passerby and steal his car. But Ian doesn't want to harm anyone without reason. He intentionally takes a step forward and pushes the passerby. But Aaron still manages to shoot the target. He's about to go and finish him off. Ian suddenly rushes forward and knocks Aaron down. After the 2 of them finish their internal struggle, the passerby has already taken advantage of the chaos and escaped in his car. The 3 of them erupt into an argument because of this. Aaron walks to the side and opens the trunk. Surprisingly, there's a woman tied up inside. Aaron instructs Ian to pull the woman out. They must first leave the forest on foot, then figure out a way to get a car. Little do they know that Gordon, the psychopath, is observing everything. He excitedly returns to his cabin. He tells Matthew that they have new prey. On the other side, fleeing passerby hasn't gone far. He dies due to excessive blood loss. Shortly after, an old man with a hat passes by. The old man also discovers the corpse inside the car. After looking at the identification, he takes all the cash. Fortunately, the old man still has some conscience. He drives to the gas station. The old man borrows the phone to contact the local detective. Why don't the people in this movie have cell phones? The scene shifts back to the forest. The kidnapped woman accidentally cuts her foot. Thoughtful Ian takes off his socks and gives them to her. From the conversation among Aaron and the others, it's revealed the woman in the trunk is named Chris. Her father is a wealthy businessman. Aaron and Jacob plan the kidnapping of Chris. They intend to make a fortune out of it, and Bess is Jacob's girlfriend. She takes her younger brother Ian around to survive. Bess reluctantly gets involved in this kidnapping case. Now Aaron no longer wants to be burdened with Bess and her brother. He is holding a gun, showing off his power. The next second, a bullet pierces through his neck, and the person who fired the gun is Gordon. Quick-witted Bess adapts to the situation. She pretends to be a victim and begs Gordon for mercy. But Gordon is not a good person. He uses the gun to pull up the shorts of the wealthy girl. Ian tries to intervene upon seeing this, while Gordon knocks him to the ground. He steps on Ian's chest. Gordon warns him to behave and not make any moves. Then he threatens Bess and her brother. He orders them to leave with him. Chris, wearing a hood, is left behind in the same spot. After the surrounding noises fade away, Chris gathers courage and takes hesitant steps. Unexpectedly, she bumped her head into Matthew. No wonder Gordon left her behind. It turns out he had a backup plan. On the other side, Bess and her brother are tied up by Gordon. They return to the location of the car accident. Gordon orders Ian to cut off the head of a deer, because it is a rare and valuable item. Ian has no other choice. He can only swing the machete wildly and chop off the deer's head. Bess helps her brother pull out the deer's antlers. The two of them carry the deer's head and follow behind Gordon. Meanwhile, the detective arrives at the gas station. The old man leads him to the spot where the body was found. At this moment, the police car's radio broadcasts a sound, reminding the police to be alert for kidnapping suspects. 3 males and 1 female, approximately 20 years old. They are driving a green 4-door sedan. The suspects are likely heading towards Spencerville. The detective finds these descriptions familiar. He has seen that green car at the gas station. The detective also had a few words with 2 young individuals. He believes that the death of the passerby is definitely related to those for kidnappers. So, the detective instructs the old man to stay and watch the body. He drives his car onto a small road to patrol. Sure enough, in no time at all, he spots a familiar green car. The detective cautiously approaches while touching his gun. He carefully observes Jacob's state of death, as well as the dead deer with its head severed. Although Jacob has a wound in his abdomen caused by the deer's antlers, the fatal injury is the bullet hole in his head. Besides that, there are some blood splatters near the car. The detective finishes his inspection and contacts the police station. He reports the location of the suspect's vehicle and the situation at the scene. The detective instructs the police station to send officers immediately. He will follow the blood trail westward and investigate the forest first. Let's go back to the forest area. Matthew brings Chris back to the cabin and throws her onto the couch, but Chris can't see anything with a hood over her head. She tries to get up and run. As a result, she hits her head on the refrigerator and faints. Shortly after, the 3 individuals carrying the deer antlers return. Gordon instructs Matthew to take Ian to deal with the deer's head. He leads Bess into the house. Bess tries to negotiate with Gordon. She admits that the kidnapped girl comes from a wealthy family. You can choose to keep Chris in exchange for ransom, but you must release me and Ian. Little did her know, Gordon doesn't give a clear response. He insists on forcing Bess to drink the lemonade in front of her, and he punches her, causing her nose to bleed. In fact, Bess is worried that there might be drugs in the lemonade, but she is forced to drink it reluctantly. Gordon smiles satisfactorily upon seeing this, while he doesn't agree to Bess's suggestion. After Gordon finishes speaking, he gets up and walks towards the refrigerator. Bess seizes the opportunity to grab the gun and aims it at him. Little did she know, there was no ammunition inside, and the sedative in the lemonade starts to take effect. Bess instantly falls to the ground. After dealing with this trouble, Gordon pulls a chair and sits in front of Chris. Because this woman has been silent, Gordon then removes her hood. It turns out that Chris is a man. Surprisingly, Gordon didn't notice. Gordon keeps praising Chris for being beautiful. Then he calls for Matthew. He instructs the strong man to take Chris to the shack and lock up. Immediately after, the 2 villains strip off Bess's clothes. They hang her on an outdoor iron frame. They mark Bess's body with a marker pen. Bess looks like pork being sold in a market. Gordon thoroughly enjoys violence and abuse. He turns on the camera to record the dismemberment process. Meanwhile, the detective follows the trail of deer blood. He steps deeper into the forest. After tormenting Bess, Gordon goes to torture Ian. He instructs Matthew to put something into Ian's mouth to prevent him from biting off his tongue later. Immediately after, Gordon unties Ian's pants and mutilates his lower body. The piercing screams echo throughout the shack. Chris quickly searches for something to cut the ropes. He uses an iron rod to pry open the ankle shackles. Chris takes the opportunity to secretly escape from the shack, but Ian's cries of agony evoke sympathy in Chris's heart. Gathering courage, he sneaks into the cabin. Chris steals Gordon's gun and ammunition. He silently enters the living room. Chris shoots Matthew, bringing him down. He points the gun at Gordon and threatens to release Ian. Actually, Chris shouldn't have threatened. He should have eliminated Gordon directly to prevent future harm. Ian, on the side, indeed worries. He handcuffs Gordon with shackles. Immediately after, Ian rescues his severely injured sister. Chris carries the gun and leads the 3 of them ahead. Unexpectedly, Gordon seizes Ian when he is off guard. Chris, distracted for a moment, pulls the trigger. He shoots and kills the unlucky Ian. Bess quickly asks Chris to shoot and kill Gordon with a second bullet. As a result, Chris freezes in place. If I hadn't seen the previous plot, I would really suspect that Chris and Gordon are working together. He doesn't even blink when he kills others. But when it comes to shooting Gordon, he can't pull the trigger. Bess, who is nearby, can't bear to watch anymore. She snatches the gun and kills Gordon. Bess decides to take Chris and demand ransom. The next moment her head explodes. It turns out the detective was following them. He wants Chris to take him back to the cabin, so the two of them return to the cabin. Unexpectedly, Matthew, who was shot and fell to the ground, is gone. Chris is so scared that he can't speak coherently. The detective has no choice but to handcuff him to a nearby chair. The detective goes alone to the backyard to investigate. He touches the bloodstains on a machete. The detective sees a severed foot on the ground. As he's lost in thought, Matthew suddenly rushes over and crushes his head. This man is indeed not an ordinary person. Matthew didn't die even after being shot before. At this moment, Chris wipes away the bloodstains on the ground. He uses the slippery liquid to free himself from the handcuffs. Chris grabs the nearby dagger and prepares to escape. Yet, Gordon blocks him at the door. It turns out "you are what you eat" is not a lie. Otherwise, how come these two cannibals can't be killed? Chris raises the dagger and strikes at Gordon's head. He also fires a shot at the approaching Matthew, although Matthew will quickly revive. Chris buys himself some time to escape. He carries the gun and sprints through the forest. Matthew relentlessly pursues from behind, but Chris manages to reach the vicinity of the police ahead. Matthew dares not expose himself in front of the police. He has no choice but to return to the depths of the forest. Shortly after, the police raid the cabin in the woods, but the psychopathic killer had already left. The movie ends here. This is a somewhat twisted slasher film. You can tell that the production budget is low. The beginning plot is a classic car accident and peril. It leads the protagonist to mistakenly enter a cannibal's lair. The clash between two evil characters should have ignited a different kind of spark. But when Chris appears, the ending of the movie becomes completely predictable, because no matter what genre of movie it is, the grand finale always involves the hero defeating the villain. As a result, all 4 members of the kidnapper group die. The killer is also defeated by Chris. Furthermore, the meddlesome detective dies for no reason. It forms a very standard movie character composition. However, I don't know why the director portrayed Chris as having a cross-dressing fetish. Could it be to create a senseless twist? Perhaps the director intends to make a 3rd installment. That's why Matthew wasn't killed off. Overall, there's nothing innovative. I don't recommend wasting your time watching the original film. For those who enjoy niche cult films, if you enjoy my channel, please subscribe to my channel.